Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
Ransomware attacks on critical infrastructure threaten essential services that Americans count on every day, whether it's timely access to medical care, or safe drinking water, or affordable energy prices. In testimony 2 weeks ago, CISA Director Easterly said that cyber attacks on our critical infrastructure pose a serious risk to, and I quote, the American way of life. And Florida is squarely in those crosshairs. Attacks were launched on hospitals in Central Florida, leaving nurses and doctors with lost patient files. A hacker tried to dangerously spike the levels of sodium hydroxide. Thankfully, a savvy water treatment worker blocked it in time from causing sickness and death. In one prolific recent U.S. attack, hackers targeted hundreds of schools, businesses, and government customers served by Kaseya, which was a Miami-based company. And that creates more than just a little economic distress. When Colonial Pipeline systems were breached in May, gasoline prices skyrocketed and gas stations across the Southeast experienced fuel shortages. So it appears that various actors target critical infrastructure, including not only cyber criminals, but also nation states and their proxies. Director Inglis, these attacks focus on high-stakes targets and large organizations that have robust security systems. But our committee's investigation found that even large organizations lacked initial points of contact with the federal government. Right now, we seem to have a patchwork of federal agencies that are focused on cyber threats. In your position, what are you doing to clarify roles and make sure that state and local governments and large non-governmental organizations know who to contact and how they should respond to a cyber threat?
Yes, Congresswoman, thank you for the question. Appreciated the report that was issued by this committee today and the recommendations, the findings and recommendations in it, one of which was that it is essential that the federal government be joined up and coherent as individual citizens or organizations attempt to report or to seek service from that government. My office, as I indicated, has 4 broad outcomes that we should be held accountable for. The first of those is federal coherence, not simply in how we manage our own digital infrastructure, but how we support and respond to support the defense of critical infrastructure. Despite the fact that the federal government is quite diverse, that can be brought to bear as a strength if we're joined up and you report that incident to one of us such that all of us then understand it and can bring all of our various authorities and resources to bear. That's the goal, and that's what we should be held accountable for.
But that doesn't really answer what you're doing to clarify the roles and make sure that state and local governments and large NGOs know who to contact and how they should respond to a cyber threat.
So let me give you some specifics then on that. Since the office was created and funded yesterday, but since the office was created, I've worked very closely with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, to ensure that they had the necessary inputs from the various sector risk management agencies. Those are classically the federal entities that deal directly with the critical infrastructure, Department of Energy, Department of Defense, so on and so forth, such that if you reported at the interface of one of those critical sectors to some part of government, CISA would receive that. In the same way, have worked with CISA to ensure that as they synthesized and got that big picture, that was then disseminated out broadly, right, to all of the respective organizations, so that if the government knows something in any particular place, the government knows it in every place. And more importantly, that we push that proactively to the beneficiaries. That work is not complete, right? It is a very diverse, and it grew up as a set of various and separate stovepipes. But that's the work before us. That's what we've been doing. I spend arguably half of my time on that issue alone.
Thank you. I appreciate that specificity. I also want to follow up on a response to Chairman Connolly's question about the federal government's position on ransom payments. Assistant Director Vordren, as you know, a cyber insurance policy will typically cover the costs associated with the ransomware attack, like hiring incident response consultants, bringing data systems back online, and covering interruption losses. But some policies can even cover ransom payments. Given your stated position on ransom payments, what would you recommend to local and state governments when they're making a decision about whether to purchase cyber insurance policies to cover losses related to an attack?
Thank you for the question. That's a challenging space for me to venture into in my job and within the organization I represent. But what I would say is simply that those state and local governments need to understand their risk calculus and where they are in their maturity of net defense and resilience, and how much time they would be able to take to legitimately bring all of their systems back online to have a functioning state or local government. And based on the totality of that analysis, that should drive whether they do or don't want to buy cyber insurance.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I yield back the balance of my time.